Off top, so far in the playoffs, which team has the highest time of possession margin and which team has the lowest time of possession margin? Play music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show. I'm Domonique Foxworth. We are joined by a deep in thought Ben Solak. Charlie Kravitz, as always, is here. Ben, I got a mission to make before we get to the off top. See if you can guess that.
Yeah.
I thought your hair was dyed. I know you're too young. You look very young, but as you popped up on the screen, I'm not sure if it's because you ain't got much sun, so the contrast is doing it. But why's your hair black? You're too young to be dyeing it, and if you are dyeing it, it's the wrong color.
No,
man.
it's got the shine of a man who took a shower 7 minutes ago, so that way he would look presentable for the Domonique Foxworth Show.
I appreciate it. We're all snowed in, though, so I don't look presentable. I don't care if you look presentable, but gel doesn't change your hair's color. I don't know what y'all is up to, but I'll take your word for it.
It's the shine. It's the lights. It's also, yes, it's the ghostly paleness of the season. I feel like time of possession margin feels like it's got to be like Patriots and then one of the Patriots' opponents. I feel like it's like Patriots.
Charlie, you want to take a shot at it? I mean, it's time possession margin, so it takes all the games into consideration.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, all the games or just one game if you had one game. So
I'm going slimmest time of possession margin is the Patriots because it feels like they have not manufactured a lot of offense in the last 2 weeks. There have been a lot of 3 and outs.
Right. So the biggest margin and the lowest. You want to give it to you?
I'm going Patriots lowest, and then for highest, I am going to
lowest
go
is going to be a
with
team
the
that
Bears.
lost, that never held the ball.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess lowest is – so the highest is the Eagles with 11 minutes in a game that they obviously lost. Yeah. The lowest is the Broncos with negative 9 minutes. And I guess the tightest margin would be 13 seconds, which was for 13 seconds. That's a bad one. Please don't be – oh, it's the Texans. It would be really bad.
Oh, it does mean the
If it was
Bills?
the Bills, that would have been really bad. But it was
tough
the
seed.
Texans.
I think, Bills fans are having enough of a rough couple of weeks that I think if there was a 13-second time possession margin, it wouldn't really move their needle very much. I think they're already at a 99.
So, Joe Brady.
What do you think about this?
I mean, it feels like this was always the plan, which is probably, I don't know if it's fair or not, but it's weird because obviously the problem was it didn't feel like for us, at least for most of us, was the coaching staff. But to hire someone internal suggested to me that they were concerned that they were going to lose Joe Brady. And this is all that they were guarding against, is they felt like what he offered was too good to lose. I also think back to I assumed that the Ken Dorsey to Joe Brady move was a Sean McDermott innovation, and that just feels at the time it felt risky and surprising because the offense was good under Dorsey.
Yep.
But it turned out to work out so well that he ended up coming to take his job. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, so I think the first thing for me is no matter who they had hired, I probably would have been this guy to replace Sean McDermott, right? If it was, they went and got one of the, offensive whiz kids, they're no experience? You're for sure, you hire the next McVay. Yeah, totally. And if they had hired the most old head, retread, CEO coach, would have been oh, really? Better than McDermott? It's there was no range in which I wasn't going to kind of have at least that reaction. It is, however, very odd to me to have the reasons for your head coach firing be we've hit the postseason wall. We clearly have a very successful group here, but there's just a limiting factor. We have to find a way to kind of instill some new excitement, some new blood, and some new belief into our team that's clearly quite good, but just needs a little extra oomph. By the way, we're hiring the guy you all already know. That to me feels unharmonious, just disconcerting. Yeah. You also have we drafted Keon Coleman because the coaching staff told us to. We're promoting the offensive coordinator to head coach moment, which that's a detail-less synopsis of what actually happened there. I know there's more nuance than that, but in general, it's okay, this feels like a very silly ending to what has been a very silly sequence for the Bills. Now, last 2 years, Bills' offense has been the best offensive football. Joe Brady's been the offensive coordinator of that offense. It is reasonable to promote this guy to head coach given the bulk of what has been successful on that side of the ball. But talk to any Bills fans. They're they're pissed about the passing game designs. They think there's limits to this offense. So, we shouldn't just say, oh, numbers go up, head coach go up, congrats Joe Brady. There were structural concerns with the Bills offense this year that were very legitimate.
Yeah, I mean, I think what this screams to me is that they're not telling us the truth. It's like they've given us and I think the truth is probably what I said originally is like they were more concerned about losing Joe Brady than losing anyone else. So this is the
it
move
felt
that
like Joe Brady, offensive coordinator Ravens, had a lot of legs. And then like the moment the Brady thing was announced, it was announced the Ravens are interviewing Declan Doyle for OC. And so it kind of feels very much so like, okay, the Ravens were right there.
No, I mean, I guess I was thinking even back before to the McDermott firing, not to just holding on to him now, like before. And I guess maybe the Ravens had already fired their coach and they hadn't determined that Mentor was the coach yet. So maybe that was still part of the case. But like that's what it sounds like to me is like just internally, they were concerned about losing Joe Brady. And rather than making it a story about, and this is just speculation, and I guess it doesn't matter one way or the other, but because they've given kind of two explanations that don't really fit, it feels to me that they just like wanted to hold on to Joe Brady more than they wanted to Sean McDermott, and they thought this is what they had to do in order to do that.
And that, I think, is the most compelling reason for why it could work out.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it will work out. He's certainly not the sexiest hire of people you thought could potentially take the passing game to the next level, make the offense feel more explosive when you have a superhero in his absolute prime and Josh Allen at quarterback. But as you know, I'm a Commanders fan, and every single year they show a graphic going into the playoffs of all of the coaches on the Shanahan coaching staff under where it's like Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, Raheem Morris, blah, 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 down the list of all these guys who are really good head coaches and really good, many of them really, really good offensive head coaches. And we retained none of them. We didn't promote internally. And we went with Jay Gruden, who some of those guys, KOC also on the list, who coached under them. And rather than getting rid of Jay Gruden and promoting one of those guys, they never did that. And sometimes when you have a team and you have you have the guy, I think I've asked you this. Why don't teams do this more often, Domonique? Where it's like if you think your best coach is the offensive coordinator, but you're like satisfied that you're a pretty good playoff team, why not take the risk and actually have your best coach do the biggest job? Because that's, if it was a player, we would be like, give him a bigger role. Run the offense through your best player. And you risk losing potentially your best coach if you don't do this. So if they really thought that, if the Pagulas and Brandon Beane, it doesn't answer any of the questions about the way that Brandon Beane's building the roster, but if they really thought that this was the best coach, I'm fine with it.
I think this is going to be one of those situations, as is true of most of the decisions, is like the results will determine if they're going to get cooked if they come up short next year and like miss the playoffs or the one thing that I do appreciate is I think it's important to have, I think what McDermott brought to them was like a patchwork defense that he would make better based on his ability to coach. So like, I think that's the biggest hire. My guess is everything else will probably stay the same. I think the offense will be fine. It might get better. I mean, I guess the offensive line, if it stays healthy and continues to play well, like it's hard to have a bad offense if you have a good offensive line, a good rushing attack, and Josh Allen at quarterback. So I'm not as concerned about that, even though taking Joe Brady's attention away from it, I think it sucks if he's a good offensive coordinator. But I think the question is, will their defense fall off? Because I think McDermott's been helping to hold it together, a roster that is pretty incomplete.
Yeah, the defense is very interesting to me because personnel-wise, like, you can't run a lot of stuff with this group. You can run the stuff that they were running, right? In terms of, all right, we're going to be all the sort of nickel team. We're going to play all this zone coverage. Like, they do not have the bodies to be like, oh, yeah, we're going to start varying our fronts. Those guys aren't there. Like, oh, we're going to be a dominant rush 4 team. Those guys aren't there. Like, you would require pretty significant roster turnover, I think, to put a new defensive system in. And so if it's Brady head coach, Bobby Babich retained as defensive coordinator, then it feels like, right, we're just running it back without that one guy, and we're just calling Sean McDermott the poison pill. That was the reason we never got to the Super Bowl, which I think sucks for Sean and is probably incorrect. However, also, like, the Bills have been so close and have missed on such small margins for so long that, like, very reasonably, the Bills could in 2025, 2020, or 2026, 2027, just make it. Not because, like, Brady was anything better than McDermott was and changed this, but just because eventually the dam bursts. Like, you have Josh Allen, he's very good. You've got some other very good players. You run the football. You get lucky in the AFC Championship game, and you make it. Like, they're that close that in some silly ways, like, the head coach change almost feels inconsequential because they're still going to be up there with the top favorites in the AFC, and they're still going to be knocking on the door of the final 8 teams next year. And then it comes down to, man, can you get a little bit more fortunate with injuries and fourth downs and red zone than you did last time around?
Ben, do you have a wish list for what you'd want for them to change personnel-wise, of like a rankings of like a couple things that you think would make a substantial difference in how the team is constructed?
They cannot get pressure with 4. And they have, obviously, like Ed Oliver was injured last year, and I understand, but if you're indexing that much on a sub 300-pound defensive tackle, like not even edge rusher to kind of be a rush 4 guy, then that's a problem. They signed Joey Bosa, right? I always get the Bosa's wrong. Yes, Joey Bosa. Yeah. They signed Michael Hoyt. They drafted TJ Sanders. They drafted Landon Jackson. They drafted Deion Walker. They put so many bodies in this defensive line, and still it's just AJ Epinesa and Greg Rousseau pushing tackles into quarterbacks, hoping to trip over into a sack. And so, like, first and foremost, you get more speed, you'll be willing to get a little bit undersized and be able to actually get after the passer with 4. That is critical. Like, if you look at their playoff pressure rates, they're like among the league's worst over the last like 5-10 years of this McDermott tenure. And then the other thing to me is you saw this a little bit with the Maxwell Hairston drafting, which, Sean McDermott, I want zone corners who are big enough to tackle with smart eyes. Maxwell Hairston was, I am very fast in man coverage out of Kentucky. Like, that was a very clear, like, Bean went and got his dude that is not a dude that matches this defense. Hairston is a guy who I think moves them more towards man coverage. And I think if they got one more, really good man cover body there at corner, they could actually be able to throw that pitch a lot more in the AFC playoffs than they have been in the past. That, to me, like, you're able to, think about what the Patriots have done this postseason with their defense. They can play man, and they have the defensive tackle do it to actually disrupt. And, like, that's always been the most tried and true way through the playoffs.
You ended right on a point that I would focus on if I were building the roster for any modern team is you have to be able to play man. It seems like that's a differentiating factor. Is like you don't have to be like exclusively man like the Lions and the Broncos like want to be, even though they'll mix some other stuff in. Like they seem to rather be a man, but you have to be able to play some man coverage, some variation of man coverage in the modern NFL, and it's something that they didn't really have the personnel to do. And yeah, you don't have to be great at it, but you have to be able to throw it as a curveball. Another thing, he went to William & Mary, so William & Mary had 3 head coaches, but when McDermott got released, they went down to 1 because Mike Tomlin. So now we got another William & Mary. I know you guys don't care, but I thought
the tribe, baby. Let's go.
Anyway, what's on your wish list, Charlie? Who do you want?
A receiver. I want to see Josh Allen do cool.
Cut all the nonsense. Get them a receiver.
No.
I agree with you. We did a lot of talking, but like that's really the thing that everyone's looking at them that they need.
I remember it was Nate Tice who was like, "How do you figure out the most important players in the NFL?" It's like quarterback. What stops the quarterback? The edge rusher. What stops the edge rusher? The tackle. What stops? Where's the quarterback go if there's protection to the receiver? What stops the receiver? The cornerback. And I was like, yeah, well, if you're getting the edge in the corners, let's at least get Josh a receiver too, and see what happens if he's not throwing to Brandon Cooks, who got off the street, and Tyrell Shavers, and a week and a half of Gabe Davis.
Schefter is reporting that Bills are going to target Jim Leonard to be the DC. Jim Leonard, for those who don't know, is currently Broncos defensive passing game coordinator. He was a Wisconsin DC for a long time. He's like, the next dude everybody's very excited about. That would be very exciting in terms of new scheme, new blood, new stuff. I would have the same questions, which is what are you going to do with this group of guys? How different is it than what the Bills ended up on with McDermott and with Babich?
Any more Bills? Do you want to move on to a couple exit interviews of teams that lost in the championship games?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can move on. I think the Bills questions are going to remain open until we do like this offseason. I think that'll be super interesting to see how Brandon Beane handles this offseason, if he handles it any differently. And these hires that would suggest to me that they at least are more aligned, and what they would do after next year if things come up short. Like, does Brandon Beane stay around? But anyway, those are all questions for the future. So what's next, Charlie?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the teams that lost this weekend, the Rams and the Broncos. We touched on this on Sunday night, but we've had a little bit more time to digest, and they're kind of at interesting points in their life cycle as teams where, Stafford is a million years old. He was in an Airstream trailer all off season with his back. He says every year he doesn't know his future. And on the other side, you have this Broncos team that had a really unique opportunity with the AFC being down. they look like they're at the beginning of their run, but you never know when you're going to get back there. You never know what's going to happen in that division. And I do want to ask you this. This is sort of an either or, but assuming Stafford comes back, which team do you think has a better shot of getting back to where they were this year? Like on the precipice of the Super Bowl, even getting there, the Rams or the Broncos?
Yeah, I think it's easily the Rams. To me, have the easier shot. I think if you focus on the two teams, the roster that I think has more uncertainty would be the Broncos, which I think when I started looking at their roster and the future, the holes in the future, like free agency, focal points and draft focal points, like I was more concerned about their roster. And I think I'm assuming that everyone stays healthy for the Rams, because the Rams seems like the issue is pretty obvious. They need corners. It's hard to find. It's not necessarily something easy to solve, but that's the only really like extremely loud weak spot. Like their D-line is super young and super talented. Like they got Curl at safety, who's very good. The linebackers aren't perfect, but they're solid linebackers. I'm sure they could upgrade there also. The offensive line is good. If Devontae stays healthy and Puka stays healthy, you got two receivers. That's a place that I want them to go. They got two running backs that are good, and Matt Stafford's coming off an MVP season. And they're in the NFC. They don't have to face nearly as many of those lights-out quarterbacks that you have in the AFC. So I think it's pretty obvious to me it's the Rams.
I lean Rams. I'm not as far there as you are. I think just because of the health aspect of it, right? Like, who's more likely to run things back? Okay, let's assume Stafford returns. This is still a team that, like, the production is so siloed in terms of, like, Stafford to Nakua and Devontae Adams. This is our passing game. That you have Nakua, who takes an unbelievable amount of contact, just given the way he plays. You have Devontae off the hamstring, and then you have Stafford off the back. Like, it's hard for me to get there on Rams are going to be able to be this healthy with that triumvirate, coming into next season. And then defensively, like, the secondary turnover is huge, right? Because it's Durant as a free agent, Cam Curl's a free agent, Roger McCreary is a free agent, Akilah Witherspoon's a free agent. Like, they're going to have a lot of different bodies there at corner, and they need to get better. But like you said, I'm not sure how easily you can do that. Denver's got everybody back, man. Denver, it's John Franklin Myers and Alex Singleton on defense, and then it's J.K. Dobbins at running back. And they have still, like, multiple years worth of the Bo Nix rookie quarterback contract to get a little bit stronger. And so, like, I'm a very much so, like, I was suspicious of Nix as, like, a top quarterback and what have you. But in terms of, like, bulk and depth of team, success of the team, Denver, to me, like, is so ridiculously deep. It's a much easier question to answer once we know who gets hired away, right? Because there's like 4 Rams assistants that are up.
Yeah.
Vance Joseph's maybe there for the Cardinals job. Like, call me when I know Chris Shula is staying, and I know Vance Joseph is staying, and I know Michael LaFleur is staying, and I think it's an easier question to answer.
Dominique, what was the face you made about Bo Nix?
No, it wasn't about Nick's face. It was.
That's such a producer question. Like, all right, let's get a social clip. Tell me more about this Bo Nix face.
It wasn't
what's your Bo Nix face?
That wasn't a Bo Nix face. That was you're concerned about health, but you listed J.K. Dobbins as a big piece of what you got.
Oh no, I meant in the sense that I'm fine with them losing J.K. Dobbins. I don't think that's a particular big needle move of a loss there. I'd expect them to honestly add it back in place of Dobbins.
I mean, I don't disagree with your assessment of their roster. I still think the situation is a little bit tougher, and we're assuming some health. Like, I think if either of them lose their starting quarterback, only one of them did at any point this season, and it's not the one that we expected. But I think whatever doctors that Matthew Stafford has got, I think they got him good. He's going to be under control. But, yeah, if they lose Matthew Stafford, they're done. If they lose Devontae, I think they're fine. They'll survive. If they lose Puka, they're done. But I think I trust that McVay and that offense, assuming that at least Stafford is healthy and they have a running game, that offense is going to be fine. I guess I'm surprised that you have more concern about them being able to replicate that. Of course, the secondary is going to be an issue. There's no disagreement there. How they address that in the offseason with don't they got 2 first-round picks? Did they?
No, that's the big thing. They have the Falcons pick.
And the Broncos went 11-2 in one-score games in the regular season too. Yeah. So this was pretty close to like a ceiling outcome for the Broncos in terms of like some of the coin flippy stuff, even if this was pretty close to, I think, a ceiling outcome for the Rams in terms of like offensive health. So yeah, the Broncos might like be just about as good of a team as they were last year and be third in the AFC West, not because they've depreciated it any way, but just because they lose some of those close games and the Chargers take a step forward and the Chiefs are back.
Well, what do you do with the first round picks if you're the Rams? Do you have any thought of making a trade, pushing it forward? Like, you have this maybe short window with Stafford. Oh, you definitely have a short window with Stafford, but we don't know how long that window is. Do you balance any win now versus like kick it down the road and realize like this might be a larger rebuild if Stafford's here for one more year?
I think for as long as they have Stafford as the quarterback, they could reasonably trade picks for veteran players, and I would think it's totally justifiable, right? Like if there's a corner that becomes available that warrants a first-round pick, then sure, go for it. At the same time, like, man, Les Snead's been drafting. He's been drafting his tail off. So if they sit there and they pick him, I'm not going to dispute it either. You know, so to me, that's like, you know, let's see what February looks like. Let's see what March looks like, and let's figure out the best move from there.
And and that's also a thing that is not as real a thing in football as it is in other sports. Whereas like football, like first round draft picks, they play. So like I think that depending on what's out there, and it's a hard decision to make based on like not having a particular like player in mind, but like having 2 first round picks, like those guys are supposed to start. You don't get drafted in first round and not play. So like I think you could do both. You can play for now while also drafting. The real question is, are you going to draft a quarterback, and when would you do that? Because I think that's something that they should probably be thinking about and preparing for, because Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be the future of that team, and Matt Stafford.
Stetson Bennett is QB3 there, and I know that because it happened, and obviously then he like stepped away from the team or whatever, and then I was in the locker room after Rams Bears, and I turned around and there was just a me-sized dude at a locker. And whenever that happens, I'm like, friend? And it was Stetson Bennett.
It's amazing. 2 first-round picks this year and 1 next year for Myles Garrett.
Oh yeah, I'd give anything for Myles Garrett. Like I don't give a how good the D-line already is.
Garrett versus Byron Young, field on the 3rd down. You might as well just punt. Like let's just do it now and get it over with.
Ben, I kept texting Domonique during the second half of the Patriots Broncos game, saying the Patriots should start punting on 3rd down. I genuinely thought that was like their potentially
just to
their best offense for closing the game.
Sacks and avoid fumbles. Yeah, listen, small hands man in the snow. You got to get worried.
You didn't go Patrick Surtain, like they had 3 draft picks for Surtain. Like that's, okay, I guess the Broncos wouldn't give him up because they're in the hunt also.
I was going through teams that, like, I mean, you could make a real argument that the Browns should do that because they've really missed the window of competing with Garrett, and it's not going to happen.
Denzel Ward.
Yeah, Ward. But okay, so the other, part of the reason we have you with us today, Ben, is you wrote an article on ESPN that came out today about lessons from the Patriots and Seahawks making the Super Bowl that I thought was really, really interesting.
Thanks.
And yeah, you're welcome. And the first one, we can get through a few of them, but one of the first ones that was really interesting, and it ties back to the Brandon Beane stuff. It ties back to the discussion we just had, which is front offices can spend their way to a Super Bowl.
Heck yeah, brother. Let's do it. I am so tickled by the fact that the Patriots spent $364 million in last year's free agency, which like 19 out of 20 times this happens. Blows up in your face. Some of the worst contracts you've ever seen. Team was way too confident coming into the season. Uber embarrassing, and we go. And this time it's just like, no, yeah, they get to go to the Super Bowl now. They had a bunch of not great players last year. They churned them out, got a bunch of better players, floor raisers in there, and the second-year quarterback took a big jump. And it's the May jump that makes this, like, that kind of conflates the issue. It's easy to say, oh, spend a lot of money for agency, get a lot better, go to Super Bowl. But free agency tends to be more of a floor-raising exercise, especially when it's a team like this that has a ton of cap space and had a lot of roster holes, right? Like, they're just like, all right, whatever it takes to get Robert Spillane in the building, get him in the building. So he's like one guy at linebacker we trust, right? You're not going to the Super Bowl because of Spillane, but you're erasing issues on the chalkboard. You're erasing Achilles' heels that could prevent you from making that run. The real engine of like the playoff push becomes head coach, quarterback, and kind of those more centralized pieces we tend to talk about. But the success with which Vrabel, Elliot Wolf, who I know, a little bit like Vrabel runs the personnel now, but still his pro personnel staff, the success that they had in identifying the right guys for the right roles and just doubles and triples across the board from the big money guys, right? The huge Milton Williams deal looks great. The Morgan Moses deal looks great. To them, the small money guys. 1-year deal for Jalen Hawkins. He's played 1,000 snaps for them at safety. 1-year deal for Garrett Bradbury. He's played 1,000 snaps for them at center. They just plugged every single gap in a very leaky boat. And most teams that try to do that in one offseason fail abysmally. Patriots pulled it off. It's cool to see.
I mean, and not only did they pull it off, like it was almost all of them. Like I think that they anticipated that some wouldn't work because that's how football works. But like they kind of all work. And I think the most important, like the biggest one, the Milton Williams one, like that, we saw it demonstrated through the course of the season, the impact that he could have on a team. And I think watching that D-line or that front in general outplay the Broncos front, which had a couple of all-pros and was a really good offensive line like that, hugely impressive. And the injuries that they did have were well timed. They got healthy at the right time, got some warm up games against some pretty bad offensive lines, and then shut down the Broncos. And that defense, like I think the point we saw, this is still fresh for Charlie, I think, because we saw a similar attempt but poorly executed by the Commanders last year, where it's like, all right, we got our guy. And their guy even played well in the playoffs last year, and Jaden Daniels. And then they went and spent some money in the offseason, and it didn't really – I mean, Jaden was hurt, but also, like, the money that they spent didn't really pan out the way that you would want it to.
Not at all. Yeah. Milton Williams, by the way, Patriots are 5th in team pressure rate, 38.5% when he's on the field, right? And he missed those 4 games. The run defense suffered. The pass rush suffered. Yeah. Williams has been just a field-tipping player for the second postseason in a row. Like, everybody did the Milton Williams is underrated part of the Eagles like last year as like a bit, and now, okay, big money with the Patriots. We still might be underrating like just how disruptive of a defensive tackle we've got here. He's a special player.
It's so funny you say that because we were talking about the Eagles defensive line a lot this year. Yeah. And I was like, they still have awesome defensive linemen everywhere. How can they miss Milton Williams so much? And then when you see it in a different situation, you realize there's like, really unique special traits that he has as a disruptor in the middle. So the second part of this was, and I have a question about the second part. The second part, your second lesson was the middle-class QB contract is a viable way to success. And this is something we've talked about a little bit on our show, how the path forward for this, who will get this deal moving forward, could be a deal, a similar structured deal that CJ Stroud signs this offseason even. But this is referring to Sam Darnold, who was signed to a deal similar to Baker Mayfield when he left Minnesota and ended up in Seattle. And what I'd ask you about this, Ben, is this a lesson or a potential trap for teams?
Both, right? Because you still have to figure out if the quarterback's the right guy, right? And that's what all this boils down to. Every single year at the Super Bowl, we do Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round. Ooh, Jimmy Garoppolo, they traded for him. Oh, Patrick Mahomes is making more than 15% of the Chiefs' cap. Oh, here's Sam Darnold. What does this mean for quarterback contracts? And it means a lot. We can discuss it and slice it 15,000 different ways. Everybody knows having a rookie contract quarterback is helpful to team building. Great. Everybody knows that Patrick Mahomes is worth $50 million. What are you going to do? You got to pay it to him. He's Patrick Mahomes. Like there's just realities of quarterback financials that we have to accept. And then every year there's a new set of 2 teams in the Super Bowl, and we decide we try to relitigate them. Fundamentally, this boils down to, do you have a guy who's capable of making the push? And how hot did he get this year? How well did he play this year? And so it absolutely is a potential trap. Because if you're going to sit down as a front office this offseason and say, listen, Sam Darnold, golden arm, very talented, he was an ex-first round pick.
Third overall pick.
Man, Kyler Murray is, ex-first overall pick. He's got a great arm. Like, let's go get him. We're going to be able to do what the Seahawks did. You are technically accurate that it is possible. You are dramatically overrating the size of the eye of that needle relative to some of the tail outcomes. And that's the thing about the Seahawks, that just like when you make the Super Bowl, there's always a lot of retconning and a lot of hindsight's 2020 is like, this is how they got here. They made these moves. The Sam to Geno exchange, absolutely number one by a mile, the biggest move. But just because we got here doesn't mean that all the universes brought us here. Doctor Strange with the one finger up, okay? There were a lot of other universes where Sam had, more spirals.
This is the universe we're in, where Sam did have the spiral.
Right.
He had the spiral, but the defense was incredible, and they developed a late season running game, and then he had an awesome game against the Rams, his arch nemesis, and it feels like we're trying to erase demons, the fact.
Exercising ghosts, right?
Yeah.
It is. And to me, it's extremely reminiscent of some of the Jalen Hurts playoff runs, both the Super Bowl loss and the Super Bowl win, in the sense that he played 2 excellent games in those Super Bowls, right? And so it's the most recent game we saw. It's the biggest game, and he was objectively great in those games, just like Sam was objectively excellent against the Rams. It doesn't erase some of the other stuff, though. Like there were previous games that did exist, and you have to acknowledge when you're talking about lessons to spin forward that we are always dealing with range of outcomes. We got to see one universe in the past, and to assume that is truth is incorrect. It misses out on the fact that there were a lot of different ways that all these meandering paths could have gone.
I feel like one of the best things about football is there's a bunch of different ways to do it, and it doesn't seem like that's true in other sports, but there's a bunch of different ways to do it, which also means that all those are also ways to do it wrong. It's like you can mess this up. And because there are so many different variables, it's hard to be able to tell why and what is the reason for things happening. And we always boil it down to a simple explanation. I think you could easily get yourself into the trap. And we saw lots of teams doing it where after Russell Wilson won a Super Bowl with the Seahawks, then it was like, this is the only way to do it. And no one could get it done. And I fall into that trap too, where it's like, you can't win without a quarterback. You have to pay your quarterback whatever it costs. But I think one thing that's coming up that has started to develop is that this middle-class quarterback is a thing that didn't used to be a thing before. It was like, you got a quarterback, he's a free agent, you pay him top dollar, or he leaves and someone else pays him top dollar. Now it starts to feel like there is a place where there is a middle ground where you can have a quarterback that you really like, but you know that he's not a top of the league type of guy, and still find a way to pay them and keep him.
In the last 3 Super Bowls, we've seen Purdy, Jalen Hurts, and Sam Darnold.
Yeah. Before Mahomes won the Super Bowl, I think it was before he made the Super Bowl last year against the Eagles, there had been no quarterback who had made the Super Bowl making more than I think it's 19% of the cap or something like that, right? Where it's just like that was the number that people would throw around, and it was not a good number. It was a garbage number. That was not a good way of thinking.
I was about to jump through the screen. I thought you were saying that was a real thing, because I feel like that number changed every year that someone did it. They moved that up again. Like that's
exactly.
It's a nonsense
it's because,
way to build a team.
Right. It's because, again, like I said at the top, you can slice and dice quarterback contract perspective so many different ways that everything becomes truth. There's there's an argument, there's a case for all of it. Whereas in reality, you got to watch the guy, you got to figure out what makes him work and what doesn't, how many systems can he run, what will make him successful, how long can he keep playing like this, how do we best support him, build the best possible team, and accept that this is largely a heuristic process. There's no X plus Y equals Z to the right quarterback at the right price tag equals Super Bowl berth. A lot happens between here and there. The best way I have to describe it is the lessons we learned from these 2025 Seahawks. Oh, this elite defensive coach with this highly variable defensive scheme, and Sam Darnold as the bargain bin quarterback playing with the elite receiver in Jackson Smith and Jigba. All of it was true about the Vikings last year. It was Sam throwing to Justin Jefferson. It was Brian Flores, and they made all their free agent changes on the defense to build that system. And Christian Darrisaw got hurt, and they lost to the Rams. Right? Nobody learned any of these lessons off them last year because we weren't sitting here in late January, early February talking about them.
They didn't learn it.
Yeah, right.
They didn't learn that lesson.
Yeah. So that it's always so tempting to see the Super Bowl teams and do exactly what I did for this piece, which is be like, these are objective truths of team building. Whereas in reality, it's, as Charlie asked, half lessons, half traps.
We can't forget that had he won that Lions game last year and then gone on to win in the playoffs, he may not be there. And also in this season, if the refs didn't overturn that 2-point conversion in the Rams game, they may not be where they are right now. They going to LA to play. It's a whole different outcome. So with the single elimination in the playoffs in football, I think we want to be able to draw major conclusions. I think that's probably the hard part from the people who win. The hardest part is to be able to look at the whole breadth of the year and be able to draw conclusions from all of that information rather than being like, hey, who the best?
The single elimination part of it is the part that I love so much and is so important. You watch the other sport postseasons, because for me, I'm not a big NBA, MLB guy, but I'll watch the postseasons, and every time there's a best of 5 series and a best of 7 series, I'm always like, this is crazy. That inferior team got lucky. They and had a good game plan, and they rode the right variance. They got the win over the superior team, and now they've got to do it 3 more times. Over here in the NFL, you get those bounces, and then that's it, and that is brutal. I think for drawing conclusions.
To the bounces point, is I went back to the 2-point conversion, but even in this game, it's if Smith catches that punt return, maybe we have a different outcome. If Devin Witherspoon doesn't undercut Ferguson and break up that pass, we might have a different outcome. And
Kobe Durant was 2 inches off that Cooper Kupp conversion, which then probably could have even been challenged and overturned.
And then we're coming out of this game. Our people said, hey, we got to get the oldest quarterback we can find.
Lessons from the Rams. Right?
It's just, hey, cornerbacks don't matter anymore. It's just a whole, we have to look at the whole thing, which is why corners do matter. Play man coverage. You got to be able to do it.
It's such their defensive build is such a fascinating thing. With
Domonique Foxworth quote: "Corners do matter." That is the takeaway from that. I agree. That's the lesson to be learned from all teams across all sports.
Ben, I was hoping if there was a chance that we got Darnold versus Stidham, I was like, we're getting a 10,000 word piece about quarterbacks not mattering from someone in the ilk.
It's the right way to do it.
I am confident that piece, despite the fact that we didn't get Darnold Stidham, will be written by somebody this summer. I just with how good Darnold was, and with like Bo Nix's push, whatever. I am quite certain there'll be somebody, and it will piss me off writing about how actually quarterbacks is just made up now, and no, it is not.
One of the things I think is so interesting about the Seahawks stuff, whether it's Sam Darnold or what we'll get into your next lesson about the coaching stuff, which applies to both teams, is just how well they've drafted in building this, in hitting over their draft pick, first and second round picks this past year, Gray Zabel and Nicky Manwari. The year before, Byron Murphy in the first round. The year before that, Devin Witherspoon and Jackson Smith and Jigba in the first round. The year before that, Charles Cross in the first round. They just hit pick after pick after pick, not just with starters, potential all-pros.
They also believe in the Charlie/Howie philosophy. Him big, him fast. Draft him.
Yeah. I mean, this is... Ben, I was screaming last year before the draft about Eamon Warrior. I was like, hold on. You're telling me he runs a 4.3 and he's 6'3 and a half, 225, and he can play a ton of positions, and he's has a lot of the modern skills, physical traits that John Taylor had. And I was like, I don't understand how he's not a first round pick. It's I just don't.
And the funny thing is the coaching staff is very open about this. If you hear Mike McDonald talk about it, he's not very technically perfect, footwork great, eyes great. McDonald all the time is listen, he was a little late on this play. We'd like him to read this out faster. He wasn't really supposed to be on this play, but big guy goes fast, doesn't he? Just wind him up and send him.
He does, and they might I mean, Dominique, I don't want to speak for you, but you think really highly of Devin Witherspoon. He might be the best DB in the NFL, and there's a chance that Eamon Warrior has a higher ceiling long term, distinctly possible.
Yeah. Oh, you weren't getting me going on Devin Witherspoon. You
can. It's just it's amazing.
Witherspoon had
so physical.
Truly one of his worst games against the Rams. He man coverage, he fell over a couple of times. He still made 3 or 4 high impact plays. It's unbelievable how much
the third down and the fourth down at the end of the game, the two most important plays. He made them both. Yeah. It's awesome. I think we focus on Eamon Warrior as being one of the key to why they can play nickel all the time, because Eamon Warrior is big. But I actually think it's Witherspoon, because they use formations. Most teams will use formations to put one of the corners in to the run game, and Witherspoon actually is, I'd say he's more physical than Eamon Warrior. As far as not physical, more aggressive than Eamon Warrior.
And he triggers way faster. Yeah. And so when you run all that boundary nonsense, he's down on it immediately.
That's what I mean by more aggressive, because physical is the wrong word. Eamon Warrior is bigger and stronger, but Witherspoon is physical, but there's no hesitation with him, and he reads quick. To your point, he triggers faster, and that matters so much. And you can't have anybody. You can scheme to make any particular person on the defense the free tackler and force them to make the tackle. They don't have anybody that you want to. And the smallest person out there is Witherspoon, and he is not going to miss the tackle, and he's going to fill whatever gap you want and play through whatever block you put in his face.
I so strongly agree. My buddy Derek Class from The Athletic said it during that game, and it's always a good reminder this time of year. We like to write all about the schemes, the systems, the body types. The best defenses are just the defenses that tackle the best. Every single year, look at the schemes. It's just the best tacklers. Who gets the guy down? And that's Seattle. It's just we have 11 guys who don't miss tackles. And so no matter what you do structurally, we're going to get to the ball carrier and we're going to limit yards after the catch. You really have to earn all 100 here as you move down the field. And to the Eamon Warrior point, because Eamon Warrior, without question, making a lot of plays for a rookie, very high ceiling, I agree. If the solution to modern defense were put a big guy at safety, we would have gotten here before 2025, right? Eamon Warrior benefit, obviously McDonald did it with Kyle Hamilton, and I was doing it with Eamon Warrior. It's a big part of their defense. But I remember when Isaiah Simmons went 8 overall. We were trying.
That's the first thing that came to my name.
I was thinking Taylor Mays with the stiff hips from USC.
And so it's Witherspoon who can play inside and out, right? And this is something that not all slot corners can do. He'll go outside and just play coverage and be highly successful to where he was at Illinois. It's DeMarcus Lawrence, who has been preposterously... He had a foot injury in 2024. He's over 30, and he's just two-gapping, ripping defensive stops. He is the second best run stop EPA of any defensive lineman in football. Only behind Max Crosby has twice as many snaps as in terms of run defense. Lawrence, like you need to have a strong side end who can actually play these two gaps and slow these runs down. Lawrence was like an unbelievable free agent signing. So Emonwari gets the highlights, gets the headlines. I understand. It is everybody in that defense. Ernest Jones, man, Byron Murphy, the nose tackle. They got dudes on dudes on dudes on dudes.
You still haven't even mentioned Leonard Williams.
I know.
It's absurd.
You named all of these incredible players, and I'm just waiting. Like, when is he gonna get to the?
I was going for the
6'5"?
undernamed guys.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, he's a monster too, who is a ridiculous athlete.
I apologize, Big Cat.
No. He's comfortable dropping in coverage. He also is a big plant guy. Big plant guy.
I love a Leonard Williams short form vertical video. All right, I'm going to do this with my plants over there. Nice.
I'm a big fan.
So lesson number 3, and you'll love this one, Domonique. So we'll go to. This is from Ben. It's okay to hire a defensive or CEO head coach, and these are great examples because these are guys in McDonald and Vrabel who are on genuinely Hall of Fame trajectories as coaches now.
One of my first appearances on this show, we talked about this, and you asked me this question, Charlie, like, you got to hire the offensive coach, got to protect him. And Domonique leaned in to be like, does this nerd pass my test? Like, will he be allowed through the gate? Like, you know, and I was like, man, to hire defensive coaches, like, I hired just good guys. And I remember Domonique being like, all right, he's allowed back. And that was big for me. I was like, cool, I get to go back on the show. While I understand the wisdom of we have a very good offensive coach, if we make him head coach, nobody can poach him from us. I understand the value of that and minimizing the turnover. There are 32 of these jobs. And while we say of quarterback, there are, fewer than 32 good quarterbacks, the nature, as Domonique said, of winning football is there's a ton of different ways to do it. And so there's more than 32 guys who deserve a shot at head coach. They have good philosophy. They have approaches. Like, there are a lot of different ways to skin this cat. And so if you just say, we're only going to go for the offensive coaches, you are destining yourself to a certain brand and style of football that may preclude you from like really good candidates like Mike McDonald and like Mike Vrabel. Do these coaching searches honestly. Don't just hire the same 2 or 3 consulting firms, get the same list of 7 to 8 names from the same 4 to 5 agents, and ride the treadmill, spin around the carousel, talk to guys, ask them about the football, hire the guy you think will do the football the best, be wrong and then fire him, or be correct to go to the playoffs. Like, do the job here when it comes to hiring coaches.
I mean, I think it's, to me at least, the ideal candidate is probably... It is always based on the situation, but if you could build a perfect model, I don't really want a guy that is super offensive or super defensive focused. I want someone who can manage this, and the offensive and defensive parts can be interchangeable. Like, I understand that if someone is so good, like, I guess Andy Reid's a great example of it, where his game management was always under investigation. However, he was just so good at creating offense that you couldn't lose him. Like, I get that we don't live in a perfect world and you have to make some sort of compromises at some point. But it feels like the ideal is like living in a world of fear of like, we can't lose our offensive guy. His brain is the only brain that works. Like, what happens is just so hard to outsmart everybody all the time. Yeah. So, like, at some point, what is going to prevail is, like, the culture of your team, and no one has more of an impact on the culture of your team than I think the head coach, and that, to me, is about management and running the team. It's not about scheme. But
yeah, and that moment of where we first started doing the whole, like, promote the offensive coordinator, keep the young firebrand head coach offensive, zippy mind, whatever. Yeah. That moment was like the Matt LaFleur moment and the Kevin O'Connell moment before they got their current jobs. Go check in with those fan bases. See how they're doing. See how fired up they are. They secured the offensive coach. Now, I think both those fan bases are kind of a little bit off their rocker, but it's a reminder that, like, this is, again, it's not as linear. It's not as X plus Y equals Z as we want it to be.
That gets back to the first point, is like the games are fickle, and sometimes you have to be able to separate the result from your evaluation. And I think, like Sean McVay, people like to focus on how good he is at offense, but I know we saw all those stories early in his career was more about the relationships and management of the team. It was not about him coming up with the best schemes. I think that stuff is overlooked, and being able to figure out who's good at that is a lot harder to do than whose offense had the highest EPA per play last year. Like, that's not hiring.
And by the way, on my comment earlier, if you have the guy, you should promote him. I guarantee you Baltimore wishes they had promoted Mike McDonald to head coach.
For sure. For sure.
I just have to do that because I want to come back on the show, which means I have to throw you under the bus as Dominique.
No, it's totally good.
That's all that was.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's a 3-person show. This is a gang up show. Someone has to get ganged
It
up on
always is, man. And you'll be having a good time for 45 minutes, and all of a sudden, there's a coordinated attack from Charlie and Dominique, man. It's intense.
It's not. So the thing is, you might be doing it wrong because often I get ganged up on or Charlie gets ganged up on. I think you
I have a very bullyable personality and disposition, let's be honest here.
I don't think that's what it is. I think it's that you have emotional intelligence and you try to throw each of us a bone. So as soon as I think you're on my side, I'm like, all right, we're good. Let's get Charlie. Then you lose Charlie and you throw Charlie a little bone and then we both just look at you like, let's jump on this guy.
I like your explanation better than mine. I'll stick with that one.
The real trick to this is if you can get me and Dominique bickering, you can just sort of end up being like the
yeah, absolutely. You just drink your coffee and enjoy the show.
The Jason Golf is what we call that.
Oh yeah,
that's crazy. I love Jason. Jason, I do not endorse that jive.
He is the man. He's
the best. Hall of Famer. He is
a show Hall of Famer.
Inaugural show Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
So last one. And I know this is a Domonique Foxworth Show, Max.
You want to be in the Hall of Fame. I can see you want one of them purple buckets. He wants a purple bucket. Anyway, go ahead, Charlie.
Last one. You'll love this, Dominique. Teams should be chasing explosive plays. And I think this one's great too because there's been a lot of talk, for myself included, about what you expected from Drake May in the postseason and some of the shortcomings he's had as they made the Super Bowl. But one of the things he has had in both the Chargers game and the Texans game were explosive plays.
Yeah, I mean, if you go and you just look at season-long numbers, these are two of the most explosive offenses. I'm not revolutionizing anything here. If you go look at the past Super Bowl teams, those teams also tons of explosives. But specifically with these staffs, right, and you have a new offensive staff in Seattle and then obviously a whole new staff there in New England, is you saw an intention to get here, right? New England started using Kayshon Boutte a lot more as a vertical player, as a downfield player. They went and they drafted Travion Henderson, clearly very comfortable with riding Ramondre Stevenson. They were doing it to start the year. They're doing it here to finish the year. But understanding the value of having a guy at back who can just hit 21 miles per hour on a touch, right? Okay, and we don't got to worry about no sustained drive. Like, this is a house call, right? He has 4 50-plus yard touchdowns on the year. You go and look at Seattle, mid-season acquisition of Rashid Shaheed. Did they need to be more of an 11 personnel team, 2 receiver sets? Not really. They were already a good punt return team, too. Torrey Horton had a touchdown. But if you're going to put a guy who runs true 4-2 on the market, and we think we're going to the Super Bowl, we'd like to have a dude who, when we're down 16 points to the Rams in the regular season, can just make that an 8-point deficit with 1 return. A guy who can start off the Niners game, start off the Rams game with 50-yard plays and just get us out of the gate fast. Jackson Smith-Njigba. It's easy to forget now. 2023, Smith-Njigba walked out and had like a depth of target of 6. He was getting screen targets from Shane Waldron. Like, this is a slot yard after the catch guy. Go read the old scouting reports. Nobody was talking about 1 out of every 20 Smith-Njigba routes is going to be an explosive gain, which is what number he's at right now. 5.4% of his routes are explosive gains. It's the best number since 2023 Tyreek Hill. It's unbelievable how successful he is downfield. And so now there was a clear intention from the personnel staff to add guys who, even at low touches, Shaheed and Henderson can be 50-plus yard plays, and also a retooling of existing players to say, we want to make sure that we're hitting on big gains. It's king in the NFL. If you can rip off a big chunk, especially with a 35-yard starting field position, you're already in field goal range, baby.
Yeah, I think the Tyreek Hill comp is a good one because his numbers, as far as the number of explosives, not just average like yards per reception. It's like the actual hard numbers of explosives that he created in like 40 plus, not just 20 plus. It was on par with not Hill's best seasons, but a vintage Tyreek Hill season. And that's like for
high explosives at high volume, extremely irregular. We are talking about Tyreek Hill and Jackson Smith-Njigba over the last 5 years as players who can do that.
And what it does, I think, I've been thinking about this a lot, is I know that saying you need explosives is not, it's not a breakthrough, but the way that I've been thinking about it is one, and you said hunt explosives, and sometimes you can get them without hunting them, but I guess it's also about who you select. It's like the run game explosive, that was like the story of last season, was like these unintended explosives from Saquon Barkley, where it was like their whole offense, like you don't gotta coach when you got a guy that might take it 30 because the O-line gets him to the second level immediately. But I started to think about like what that value is, and we don't talk about explosive the way that we talk about turnovers, but it kind of feels like the offensive version of turnovers to me. When you have an interception, you're like automatically going to have good field position. Like almost no matter where it is, the turnover is going to automatically have good field position and put you in, not only take points off the board for the other team, but put you in position to score. And that's what it feels like, explosives that are like 30, 40-yard explosives. Of course, the 20-yard ones is they even if they don't end up in points, but they're more likely, those drives are more likely to end up in points because you're stealing a bunch of first downs. But even if they don't, like, they tilt the field, and then they impact the way that the defensive coordinator and the defensive backs play the rest of the game. Like, I think it's hard to exactly quantify how valuable it is, but I remember back in the early 2000s when I was a player, it's like, you're going to have to run. You have to show me first. Like, I need to see on tape you running past people, or I'm sitting at the sticks. You're going to have to run by me in tape, or I'm sitting at the sticks. And it gets so much harder. And you see more often now, too. I feel like, I guess I should look this up because I don't know if it's true or not, but it feels more true that on third and manageable situations, teams are taking shots. Like, it's 3rd and 5. They're going up top. And that's the best time to do it. I mean, what are the chances you're going to hit it? I don't know. But if you do, drives over, you got points.
So there was a really interesting like nerd paper that I tried to find really quick, and I can't find it. And so forgive me if I'm not attributing and I'm misremembering. But it was a wonderful example of looking at drives that were actual scoring drives on which there were no explosive plays. And it was like, hey, there's like 9 of these. Like, they don't happen, right? Where you just so consistently get like 13 or fewer yards on a drive that you can just walk it down the field. Like, the Rams could do it, but very few other teams are consistently doing this. Yeah. So you use like the turnover metaphor. To me, explosives are very analogous to sacks. Where like when you get a sack as a defense, like that drive is most of the time over. Like they're not going to pick up a first. It's done. Sometimes it's a 2-yard sack and they can work their way back, but you're so far on the forefoot that you're now playing as the aggressor. An explosive play as an offense just says, all right, immediately, even if you get us to punt on this drive, we've established a big field position win. More than likely on this drive, we're at least getting an opportunity for 3, and then we talk about opportunities for 7 and going for 4th downs and so on and so forth. So there's a field tipping nature to explosives, which in a very funny way, like as with all things the analytics movement has discovered, coaches in the 70s already knew this. They were like, all right, first win the field position battle, right? Be punting from the 50, make them play from the 10. But that's what explosives immediately do is they win a field position interchange. And then if you can continue moving from there, now we're talking about points on the board.
It's funny how this all works, though. Is like I feel like the football that I grew up watching was a lot more like run, deep pass. Like it felt like there was a lot more attempts. And I feel like we're going back to that. But like to your point, like the basic principles of football, like analytics is like helping us to be able to explain it, but understand that like, if we're going to put the ball at risk through put it in the air, it must be worth it. Like, and it felt like that, like a deep post was the only play they ran like in the 70s. We're running goes and posts. Otherwise we're running a lead or ISO.
Well, whenever I talk about the Shanahan-McVay offense, like that mid-2010s moment, the thing that I always come back to is, okay, like they coached outside zone really well, like cool play action, but like why was this so valuable relative to other schemes that were also being coached well and installed very well? And it's because there are 3 ways to get explosive passes in the NFL. You can either throw it 20-plus yards down the field, like with air yards. You can throw behind the line of scrimmage, right? Screens and swings, and these plays go for huge yards after the catch. Or there's one area of the field between 0 and 20 you can throw the ball to. It's the intermediate middle. If you can reliably throw the ball 10 to 15 yards in the middle of the field to a player on the run, moving left to right, and you hit him in stride, he'll go pick up an explosive for you. And so the offense that found the way to make that area of the field the biggest, the easiest to throw to, the fastest to throw to, that's the offense that became the explosive passing offense. So what have we learned about explosive passes in the last 10 years? We're a lot better at manufacturing them in this third region of the field than we ever were before. A lot of times previous, it was screens and shots. Now there's a third place you can go to get them in the passing game.
The Broncos offense, screens and shots.
Screens and shots, baby.
Football's fun, Charlie.
It's the best. I'm going to miss it so much.
1 game left, man. Enjoy it while we got it.
All right. That was fun. Thanks, Ben. I like you. We'll have you back sometime soon, I hope.
Extremely Ben Solak coded end to a podcast there. All right, and that's the end. Please stop listening. I don't know what to say here as we finish.
I was trying to think of a joke to make fun of you on the way out, but I decided that you didn't deserve it.
You'll come up with a good one in an hour. You can text it to me.
And I'll kick myself. When are you getting out to Super Bowl?
Get in Monday, leave Friday, I think. I've never been to San Francisco. I'm very excited. I'm going to go see a big tree and take a picture with it, and I am deeply thrilled by this.
All right, well, I'll see you there, I hope. Have fun, be safe. Charlie, thank you. Thanks to all the great producers. We out. Everyone stay warm.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.